Hi, Taurus Sun and Rising. Welcome to your January 2025 Astro Update. It's Rena here. I have Taurus Rising, a late degree of Taurus Rising, which brings up a very important point. You have to take into account that this is a general reading. I was going to say, if you are like me and you have a late degree Taurus Rising, you might find that the Gemini report offers you some more accurate timing types of things. But really, unless you're actually looking at your chart, you can't say for sure where things are going to fall. And if you're listening for a Taurus Sun, understand that you have a rising sign, and that's your natal chart, and that is going to give you a totally different picture. And a lot of times when, like if you get a private reading, the natal chart will be used. I would say, vast majority of times. So another thing I want to mention is that I'm recording this on Friday the 13th in December. So it's like weeks before January begins. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm going to speak about some things that have not occurred yet in December that affect January. And some of you will be able to take advantage of that because you're going to be listening before those events as well. And one of those things is the fact that we come into January with Mercury out of its shadow period, out of retrograde motion, but still in its shadow period. So it's in Sagittarius, and for Taurus, this is the 8th house, okay? And it will go direct on the 15th of December for anybody listening right when I'm recording this. But it will have a post-shadow period for a couple of weeks and then come out of its shadow. What that means is that it's going back to the degree, which is 22 degrees, almost 23 degrees of Sagittarius around the 3rd of January. And then after that, it's going to be completely up to speed. When planets retrograde, and even, in the pre-shadow period, they start to slow down. Mercury and Venus are two very fast-moving planets, but they can slow down when they're in their shadow period in pre and post periods. And then of course the retrograde is over 3 weeks long itself. So I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to give you an example of what's coming into January. But actually, on the 2nd of the month, Venus goes into Pisces, and for Taurus, this is the 11th house. And the 11th house is the house of hopes and wishes, your long-range goals. And Venus can bring money, so you might be able to satisfy one of your the goals that you've had for a long time. It's one of those things that it's not like, you might have a goal of like, I want to buy this really cute outfit that I saw. That's not something that's going to be, you're going to have to spend a long time saving for or whatever. But some of these things are very long term. So that could be something where you fulfill it. But it can also be, the 11th house can be the house of gains, which means that this can be a period where you actually see gains in terms of your earnings. And this is even more significant because Saturn is in this house as well as Neptune. Now, when Neptune entered this area, this made you very idealistic about maybe going after your dreams. And some of you in this transit of Neptune and Pisces may have done something that you never dreamt that you would do. And but in the back, the funny thing about it is it's like this, what I'm doing right now, I'm in my 10th year. Back in 2014, when I conceived of this idea and put it into motion in 2015, but back in 2014, I had never entertained the notion of becoming an astrologer, of making videos on YouTube, nothing. That was completely out of left field. So I want to say, because the 11th house, because it is long-range goals, that isn't necessarily the same thing, but it can be like the same vibe. Because when you have goals, you're very methodical about it and you're very conscious about it. If you come up with an idea just kind of randomly, you might put it into motion, within a relatively short period of time. Of course, for me, it was like a 9-month process before I actually did it. So, maybe that is a long-term goal. But the bottom line is that some of you may have done what I did, where you just did something that it's like kind of going out on a leap of faith, or just something that you never thought you were going to do. And maybe it paid off for you. Maybe it's kind of like a bit iffy, but you still hold kind of hope for certain things that you want to accomplish. We have all kinds of long-range goals. So Venus can simply give you that. Maybe it's the financial backing to do it, or it's something that there's like harmonious energy with this. But with Saturn and with Neptune, they provide different things. Neptune provides the inspiration, and Saturn, which has been here for almost 2 years, provides more of the foundational stuff, the what do they call that? Like grounding, being realistic. There's another word I'm looking for. But making it happen, making it actually come into being. And all of these things matter and are part of the process. So hopefully you'll see some kind of fruit for your past labors with this Venus transit. It can also be simply that you find love or some romantic association through the groups of friends that you have, because that can be the 11th house is friendships, your social networks. On the 3rd, like I said, Mercury comes out of its shadow period, and we're going to have Mercury go into two other signs in the month of January. So when I tell you that Mercury is speeding up, I wasn't exaggerating at all. And so this Mercury being in Sagittarius in your 8th house, this had to do with something with shared resources. And for some people, it could be an inheritance if you're getting divorced, money that was owed to you through some kind of, or some loan that you took out. Maybe it didn't go through, but now it's going to. It could be so many different things. And or maybe you were rethinking these things. And also, by the way, when I say shared resources, not only when you're getting divorced, but your spouse, maybe something with their money. And, Mercury can be paperwork that has to be signed and stuff like that. And the other area that the 8th house can represent is the area of rebirth, or it's rebirth, but it's like transformation. So it's very possible that in the past few weeks you've been thinking about changing yourself at a very profound level. And one of the things, because like I said, I have Sagittarius in my 8th house, but I have some of Sag in my 7th as well. That's what I'm talking about. But, this transit for me has been really like diving deep, and it's not easy, It can be like very uncomfortable. So just realize that it's important to think about these deep topics because even the topic of mortality can come up in one way or the other because the eighth house can be about death. Death is, the ultimate transformation. And sometimes we may kind of like be very superficial about that topic because we don't want to think about it. But then something comes into our reality or collides into our reality that forces us to think about it. So anyway, that's going on. And on the 13th, we have a full moon at 24 degrees of Cancer. This is going to be, oh, I'm sorry, I'm skipping something. On the 8th, Mercury goes into Capricorn. Okay, so that's nice because Capricorn is a fellow earth sign, so it trines you from the sun or from the ascendant. Now, the ninth house is Sagittarius's domain, which happens to be my sun sign. So I know all about Sag and what it represents and what the ninth house represents. And it's all about expansion. When your mind is here, actually, I was going to use as an example that Mercury in the eighth house, there could be something like with student loans or, if you'd wanted to go back to school, the ninth house is like higher education. But it can be like if you decide, I always use the example of the yoga teacher for the ninth house because it's the God house. And it's kind of like that systematic, it's like the house of religion and things like that. So if you're studying something very systematically, Mercury is about the mind, so it could be your studies, then that would work for that. Could be getting a passport because you're going to travel. Now, I have to, go back a little bit because I don't know why I jumped over these things. It's kind of strange. I don't usually do that. On the 6th of the month, Mars goes back into Cancer. Very interesting because Mars retrograde in Leo on December 6th, and it goes back into Cancer on January 6th. And the number 6 is connected to Venus, and that's your ruler. See, we can we can very quickly tie everything together if we want to. But so what does that mean? Okay. So it started off in your 4th house and went back into your 3rd house. I do believe that some Taurus people, maybe a lot of Taurus people, are thinking of moving, but there's like something that is you're mulling over or that you're going over. And the 3rd house can be local area, okay? Now, in my understanding of this, it would be your local area. But I would say if we generalized it, it could be any local area, maybe a potential local area that you want. So if you're looking to move and you're not necessarily going to move to another state, province, country, whatever, you might just be checking out some other neighborhoods and saying, and this would even be a place that you may have visited in the past. And I would say maybe around last summer when we had a new moon in Leo in that 4th house. And that might have been a time when you said, yes, I'm definitely going to move, but there were other things going on. Who knows? That could be something. And I never hear any astrologers saying that about Mars retrograding in the 3rd house. But you know what? I get to create my own interpretations too. It's not like I have to just regurgitate everything everyone else says, right? And another thing, one of the things I look to with Mars is conflict. You know, we have Venus, and that's harmony, and Mars is conflict, and these are the divine lovers. And it's not that I'm trying to be negative, it's because there is contrast in the universe. Okay, so Venus brings the harmony, and Mars can bring the contrast, the conflict. And if you think about it, conflict is something that can help us, because let's say you're in the workplace and all of a sudden there's a new employee who's your coworker, and you cannot stand this person and you get along with everyone. And this person is really poisoning the well with other coworkers. That's what malignant narcissists, they tend to poison the well, and then they can get other people to gang up on someone in a certain group. It could be in a family, it could be in the workplace, it could be at school, in a classroom, it can be anywhere. So, maybe you have had a situation where you have felt that. Well, what that means is that it kind of forces a person out of complacency, because it becomes so uncomfortable to be in that situation. And I'm just using general examples. I'm not saying this pertains to Taurus in general. But the point is that it gets us out of our comfort zone so that we can make necessary changes. I have joked about comfort zones, and that I'm saying as a Taurus rising, and I said, what's wrong with comfort zones? Because to me, it's like, what's wrong with being comfortable? But the reason that it's not really a good thing ultimately is because it leads to complacency, and that means that we're not going to grow, because we're just going to stay in our golden cage that has this wonderful cushion, and but it's a cage. It's not allowing us to experience true freedom. So if you find yourself in this kind of a situation with conflict, rather than say, oh no, everything's terrible, look at those relationships. Maybe they are really not good and you really have been unhappy with them, because it could be trying to push you out of that. This is in the area of family members, specifically brothers and sisters, but it could be your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, it could be them. And it could be something, but this is Mars retrograde, so it's not necessarily that you're going to necessarily be like having it out with them. It might, because it's retrograding, you might be like, okay, I'm done with this shit. I do not want to argue about this anymore. And that could be a good thing, because once you change how you deal with other people, that situation changes. Now, I can't guarantee that it's going to necessarily come out the way you want it to, but it will change, and just by the dynamics changing. This can also be neighbors, the third house. So if you have had any clashes with neighbors, some of you may have been trying to redo your house in some way, like remodel or put an addition on, and maybe the local area, you ran afoul of their regulations. You had to go through that, and then maybe the neighbors complained, and so you might be still dealing with this covert hostility. Covert hostility could definitely be there, Mars retrograde. So keep that in mind, and don't let it seep out in ways that let people know. If you really are trying to hide your displeasure, hide it hide it as well as possible. Don't let it come out in different ways. If you're listening for your sun sign and you have Mercury and Gemini, you might have a bit of snark. as a Gemini, as a Taurus person. And being sarcastic can a lot of times be passive aggression, which is covert hostility, really. So just keep that in mind. So on the 13th, we have a full moon at 24 degrees of Cancer in this third house, and Mars will be in conjunction with it at that time. Yes, you may be calling it quits with a sibling. Maybe you see their true colors about something. And you're like, because remember, you have Mercury having traveled through that 8th house, and some of you may have some of the 8th is Capricorn, and so you might still have Mercury there, and you're dealing with a will, and you're like, wow, I didn't know that this brother or this sister was so greedy or was so deceitful. And then you start to connect the dots and you go, wait a second, this has been actually happening my whole life. I don't know why I thought otherwise. I guess I was in denial. And that's okay. Because then you find out exactly, where they're coming from, and you can make adjustments about your dealings with them. But definitely you could find out something there. Because Mars is connected to it, anything that you do, now this could be even something that you write online or that you say out of anger, out of emotion, be very, very careful, because you can't erase that. You can delete your message, but the damage can be done. And if you don't want that to happen, you have to really practice emotional restraint. So I'm giving you this ahead of time. This is on the 13th of the month. This could simply be an idea that you want to act upon that comes to you, because this is the house of the mind. It might be like you're getting this wonderful idea. Now, later in the year, we're going to have Jupiter in Cancer, so there's definitely this theme. So something that you act upon, who knows, maybe it will end up being very lucrative for you at some point. On the 19th, the sun goes into Aquarius. 8 days later, Mercury goes into Aquarius on the 27th, and then on the 29th, we have the new moon at 9 degrees of Aquarius. This is the 10th house for Sagittarius, for Taurus. So this can really usher in some great career vibes. And remember that I said that Venus is in that 11th house. So you may see that you are getting a raise, or some other, if you work for yourself, that you're coming up with some kind of new way of earning money through your career, or for, business or what have you. And that can be financially lucrative. This new moon can indicate that. And interestingly, the very next day, Uranus goes direct at 23 degrees of Taurus. And there you go, Taurus. What degree of Taurus are you? Because that will determine whether or not it's in your first house or your 12th house. I have 26 degrees of Taurus rising. So Uranus has gone back into my 12th house. It actually, I believe it did. I don't know. Did it go up to 26 degrees? I'm not quite sure. I know it went to 25 degrees. I think it went to 26 before it went retrograde. But yeah, so it's going to go into Aries. I'm sorry, Gemini, in later in this year, but it is going to go back into Taurus. So you're not done with it yet. And this is all about being willing to be seen as different. Taurus is a very, I think Taurus is a pretty conventional sign. So you tend to like to, you know, believe in the tried and true and like to just kind of operate that way. And so this isn't really, but I'm acting like this is just so much under your control. I mean, you're going to just feel it's like something came over you. And some of you have already experienced this because it's, it's a later degree now. So a lot of you may have been like, what has gotten into me? When Uranus was on top of your sun, for instance. And for your ascendant, it can just be your life as a whole, like wanting to break free from something that feels very oppressive. That's something that feels like you're being pressured to be like everybody else in some way. And this is, to be very honest with you, this has been kind of a theme for, I think, the collective, because of it being in Taurus and knowing that Taurus is an earth sign, and even in terms of finances, where we've been told since the day we were born that, oh yeah, get that steady paycheck, da 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 da. Well, Uranus has kind of, in some ways, made that like up in the air. Look at what happened in 2020. People, one day they woke up and they could not even go to work because their job was shut down. They couldn't collect the paycheck. So there are no guarantees in life about what's going to happen day to day. And that's one of the reasons why the more that we can remain detached and really cultivate faith like a really good skill. That's so important. Taurus, not that easy sometimes because you tend to look for the tangible in life. Proof that something is going to go the way you want it to go. And Uranus is very intuitive. But it's not, intuition has nothing about seeing, the results right in front of you. It's like about, sensing what is truth and what is not. Because sometimes you can get something that looks like it is totally true, or somebody telling you something and they have all the credentials and they're, you're inclined to believe them, and you have to still trust your gut and do your own research, right? I mean, for anything, it's beyond foolish to just believe somebody else simply because you're impressed with their credentials. What they're saying may be relatively true, but it may not be true for you specifically, or they could be downright lying. You never know. So we have to tune into ourselves more. And so that might be something that really comes more online for you at this time now that Uranus is direct. Okay, Taurus, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you'd like a private reading, I have package deals where you save money buying 2 related readings at the same time. I have individual readings for transits, natal chart, interpretation, career, love. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Bye.